I'm with Samantha, who's the executive director of Apathy is Boring. So, a little bit about my background. A lot of people probably know me from Vanessa from The Bachelor, but what they obviously, I don't think that they do know is I'm trying to get more politically engaged in Montreal. Before I met my husband, who was like very well immersed in the political world, I didn't know much. Like, I was asking him questions that I think a grade 2 student would probably be asking him, but I'm like, I feel like a lot of people will relate to the questions I'm asking him. So I'm so happy I discovered Apathy is Boring, and like, you're the best person to ask all these questions to. So just give us like a little rundown of what Apathy is Boring, what you guys do, and how people like myself can get engaged.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that experience is super common. People often, when they sort of like start getting politically engaged or early on, often come to realize like that there's this whole political world there because they get interested in an issue or because someone in their life is like, kind of helping them along and like answering their questions. So that's like a really normal. We're not like born into this world like politically aware. It's just not, it's something that's like learned and taught and sort of we get immersed in. So like that's super normal. I think that so Apathy is Boring. We've been around for 21-ish years now.
Wow.
Yeah, we were founded in Montreal by three young people who just wanted to make a difference. They looked around them and they saw that their peers weren't voting, that they weren't politically engaged. This is all the way back in 2004. And they were like, well, what can we do? They were all really creative. So they got a small grant, a couple of $1,000s, and they put together a nationwide campaign. They did one of the first like digital outreach for youth by youth campaigns for the federal election that year. And basically they ended up like really like blowing up. Like people were like, wow, this is really cool to see this group of young people care so much about an election or like electoral participation in general. And so, yeah, 20 years later, we're still here. We still do work on elections. We have programming across the country in 8 cities. We work with thousands of youth every year to get them engaged in different ways, whether that's elections, more engaged in their communities, getting involved in advocacy or like policy issues. We kind of try to meet young people wherever they're at and try and help them find a way to have more of an influence on the world around them.
So someone who's in my position who wants to get more politically engaged, but I feel like there's so many layers. Like if I uncover like everything that I feel is hindering me from not voting, because I do vote. I voted every election, but I feel like I've never really voted with the information that I feel I needed to make the best decision. So how can someone who is in my position get more involved? I guess like my question is, right now, a lot of people who are our age are on social media. They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok. I don't know what the apps are. I guess there's Snapchat, but there's so much information out there. How can we get the right and proper information to make the decision of who to vote for?
Oof, it's a really tough question, and like I don't think there's like an obvious answer. Unfortunately, it depends. First of all, there's a little bit easier when you look at things like the federal election because we have a much broader media ecosystem that's covering different issues that the federal government's involved in. Obviously, like a lot going on right now with foreign policy and trade. We're following a lot about, what's happening with the tariffs. Like these things are big national news stories that are a little bit easier to plug into. When you get down to like the provincial or municipal level, and municipal, if you're lucky enough to live in a bigger city like Montreal, like Quebec, never mind if you live somewhere like in a small town, like it's very difficult to stay informed. And that's because we like don't have enough journalists and media organizations that cover those smaller markets. But it's also like not every city has a budget or every candidate has a budget in your small town election to like put together a website or like even have a full platform. Like those things take resources and money. And even then, some people will be like, well, I don't trust what you say you're going to do because I don't know who you are. Or, or like, yeah, that sounds really nice, but how are you going to do that? And so there's a lot of like sort of negotiation that you have to do and try and get a varied amount of information. But like it's really hard to know who to trust. Like, and I think that's why one of the places that like we start and where a lot of people start is with people that they know and people that they trust. Like word of mouth is one of the first things. It's like, who are you voting for? My sister.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like
Call her out.
blow her spot up a little bit right now. But she was like literally confessed to me recently. She's like, I ask you every election who you're voting for, and like pretty much like
I vote for what my sister votes
Yeah,
for.
literally, because she's like, I know that you think a lot about this, so I trust, you know, like, or we'll talk it through. And like, I'm not going to say she's voted the same as me in every election, but like, we do talk about it because she's like, okay, wait, explain this to me. And she trusts me, so I'm able to have that relationship. Social media becomes a bit more complicated because I'm sure you know, like, people develop parasocial relationships with the people that are on social media. They're like, I feel like I know them, you know,
I can trust them.
I see their kids, I see, you know, whatever. And so like that's kind of a bit difficult because that's where you get into the zone where like people are able to spread maybe misleading or like misinformation, like things they don't know are false, but maybe are a little false. Like, and people, you know, have a trusted relationship with them. So it's hard. Like, say, try and get your information from as many places as possible is usually a good idea. And then going to like, if it comes to like the election itself, like where, when, how you can actually like cast your ballot, the best place to always go is like to the electoral management bodies, they're called. So like Elections Canada, Élections Québec, Élections Montréal. They have all the resources there.
3 websites? I thought it was
there's
one.
Yeah.
One with like different tabs that we can get more information on.
No, there's in Canada they're different bodies.
Oh.
So they have different rules, which is really important around things when it comes to like making sure you're registered. Like
I know you got a great story for that.
Yeah, this is like my confession. I didn't vote in the last Montreal municipal election because, this is a super common thing. Like this happens to people all the time. I got a notice in the mail that said Élections Montréal. We had just voted in the last federal election. It was 2021. In the federal election, you can turn up on the same day with your ID, and if for some reason they don't have you registered at that polling station, but it's your local polling station, they can verify your address and register you on the spot.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you needed the registration paper.
No, you can literally the list of voter IDs that you need is like, it's like a double-sided sheet this big. Like you can bring a utility bill and your Medicare card. You can bring it's very,
That's for federal.
For federal. So having just done the federal election and done this like big campaign about getting young people out to vote, I'm like, okay, I get the notice from Élections Montréal. I just moved in July and I hadn't filed taxes yet to update the registry, which often happens automatically. So I was in this kind of weird gray zone. And I opened finally, like it's been sitting on my counter for like 2 weeks. I finally opened it to be like, oh, I should double check my registration, thinking I could go online like you can or whatever. The deadline to change your registration had already passed and I had missed it. And the process was something like you had to go. So think of the federal where you can show up and they'll like help you. It was like you had to go to the actual office to update your information because it was in the electoral period.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, there was
like
nothing to be done. I could not vote.
Right. And you're someone, if you did get it in time, you probably would have went in to give your information. 100%. But someone who would be in my position or someone, you know, that's not usually going to vote, that kind of just like stops them from wanting to go out and vote or like go out and register themselves. Like it's an extra step 100%. That I feel like, why can't we just do that online?
Yeah. I have similar questions, but I was also just like, what kind of old process is this? Like, are they going to unroll a scroll and like write me in like calligraphy? Like, I was like, when you think of like how much, again, like thinking of that media ecosystem, what we hear about the federal election, people think that, including me, that the process is sort of this one way, but they're different. They vary depending on the different levels of government. And it can be really confusing for clearly even someone who like knows how these things work. And so, I didn't vote. And it was like the first election I think I've ever not voted in. And it was because I missed the...
How guilty did you feel?
So guilty. I've not told this story like beyond like my closest friends.
Well, that's just like, it goes to show you how much like information, there's like not enough information accessible to people in order to make these informed decisions. And especially like if there's a deadline.
Yeah.
So,
or if you have to go in person, like that's what we would call like a barrier. It's a huge barrier.
Yeah.
A lot of young people are like, I have to pick up the phone and call. Like, forget that. You've got to go to the office. And like, that's something that like when we talk about the, and this is like a small, because most people will get, their address will get updated through the system. But because so many people move in July, when you have a deadline, especially young people, students, people who are changing roommates, changing locations, like that's a huge barrier. And when we have turnout of something like 36%, I think in the last municipal election in Montreal, like we shouldn't have barriers like that in place. It's already clear enough that there's enough people that
don't vote.
Don't vote.
So what was the highest turnout?
Oh, that's a good question.
So 37 was the last municipal?
The last municipal. I'd have to check on I don't want to spread misinformation. But I mean, municipal turnout has been declining over the years. And like with the federal election, for example, we saw turnout kind of crater in like the aughts, like 2000, 2010, and then 2015, it spiked back up again.
Why?
Lots of reasons. I think that there's, including with young people who usually vote in like lower numbers. I mean, some people think it was like a change election. So like, remember 2015, like Justin Trudeau came in and like people wanted to vote for something different. And that can be really motivating when people want to vote someone out of office. Really motivates people to turn out. But it has stayed, it came down a little bit, especially like in the 2021 election, but like, it went back up again. We had the highest turnout we've had, I think, in 30 years in the federal election this spring.
Wow.
Yeah. So people, again, really motivated by this big issue of like, you know, Canadian sovereignty and like the Trump and the tariffs and like, you know, elbows up, and like that got a lot of people out. For someone like me, I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm so happy people turned out. I want to see how we could keep people turning out. Even in elections where they don't feel like, you know, the country's about to get invaded or something, you know?
So municipal elections are coming up. Actually, I had a question. So is it like all municipalities that, so Laval, like everyone is voting on November 2nd?
Yes.
Everyone should be voting on November 2nd. I had a question and it slipped my mind, but it had to do with, I had such a good question I wanted to ask you, and I'm like, I needed this information so badly. I don't remember what it was. But there's so many questions I want to ask you. One, you were talking about budget. Why is there a limit to how much people could donate for campaigns?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Usually, okay, so when we think about elections, let's use like an extreme example like the United States. Famously, there's a lot of money in politics in the US. And so when you have a campaign that's happening, the sort of higher order principle, if you want to call it, is that you want the people to have a say in who they elect and who ends up in office, and what, you know, ideally you'd want politicians sort of playing on an even playing field and presenting ideas that the public can then vote on. That's like really fluffy, but like sort of the general idea is that we govern, it's our government as citizens, and we send representatives on our behalf to make decisions because we think that we trust their judgment or we like their ideas or whatever. We want to have a beer with them, whatever the thing is. I think that the idea of having money in politics, now you need money to be able to get those ideas out, right? Communications is expensive. You know, you need staff, you need signs, you need all these things. So there needs to be some money allocated to getting that message out to the public in general. But there's sort of an ongoing conversation of like, how much money should there be? Should people, if I'm really wealthy, for example, should I be able to give like all my money to a political campaign? Because, you know,
in the States you can.
In the States,
there's no limit.
Yeah, I
know. I see like it looks like a concert.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my question I wanted to ask you. Okay, keep going.
No, so that's basically the idea, is that there's sort of this idea that we should have around like who gets to put money to influence, because it does influence politicians in some way, or it influences the campaigns, who donates, who they need to get money for, how they, you know, meet their budget needs, how they bring in revenue. So the idea is that we shouldn't allow anyone to have too much influence. And so
everyone's like on the same playing field.
Yeah, the cap is like, I think right now something like, at least federally, like $1,200 per person, and no companies and no unions. So it's only individuals that can donate, which like, from a democracy standpoint, is like, okay, as a person, you can give a little bit. You're not going to fund someone's full campaign. And, you know, that's an ongoing conversation. A lot of people think it should be lower. I mean, we have some ideas about that at ASB, but like, all that to say, we're in a much better place, I would say, than the US, where they're just like, it's a free for all. Just like
handing it all out. So there's campaigns happening. I actually was telling you this story before. When I met my husband, he was like, oh, I'm going to a campaign office. I was like, who goes to campaign offices? Like, I've never been to a campaign office in my life. He's like, your school never brought you to a campaign office? I'm like, not that I remember. I don't think so. And so I started, he's like, I bet you call 5 people. 4 out of the 5 are going to say they went to a campaign office. I'm like, okay, I'll call my family, I'll call my friends. I called a bunch of people. All of them said I've never been to a campaign office.
Yeah.
So it was like it was an eye-opening experience, I think, for him, because he's heavily involved in the political world. So for him, he thought at that point a lot of people like understood politics. I'm still learning a lot about politics.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a millennial. I feel like the millennials need a little bit more than just going out to vote. Like there needs to be not an incentive, but like, what if we do like a coffee? I don't know if you guys do this, but what if there's like a coffee meetup before, like you get together with like a bunch of friends, you know, and you're getting together. You have to obviously live in the same area in order to like go to an area, like a location that's like close to you to go and vote. But if there's like a coffee meetup, or what if there's like not an after party, but like something where you feel there's like a sense of like community of friends and people that are doing something right. And I mean, it's your right to vote, so it's a privilege to go and do that. But like the incentive, I feel like we need an incentive. Does that make sense?
No, it's so funny because I'm often like, in Australia they have barbecues. Like I think that's such a great idea.
Barbecue.
But like they're because voting at the end of the day is something you do alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so some people are very self-motivated, and if you're at the level of even being a member of a political party, I think it's like 1 or 2% of Canadians that are even like a member of a party. So like you're already in a layer of people that are like so engaged that I'm like,
yeah,
good luck, like do your thing. That's not what we do. Like we're working with people who don't know a campaign office exists, or like what's a riding association.
Yeah.
Like every for the most part, the major parties federally have offices, like the parties have offices that run their local riding level politics. A lot of people don't know that, like, so it's like party life in Canada is not like really well integrated into like communities for the most part. So it's hard. And like, yeah, not a lot of people know how to even get involved. If you wanted to volunteer on a campaign, for example, you really liked a candidate. Like, I think if you ask most people, they'd have no idea where to start.
No. I feel like if I can compare it to something, it's like wanting to stay healthy and going to the gym. You should be going to the gym, but it's like, I have to go to the gym. I have to like pack my bag. That's the idea. It's like, how can we break that barrier of like actually going out and doing it and voting? Because I know so many people in the last federal election who are so motivated to either, I always say, if you want change, then change needs to happen. So whether you want to change or you didn't want change, but then they didn't go out and vote. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, I'm actually like I'm asking people, what was it? And they're like, it's just, I don't feel like going. Like it's a hassle. It was a hassle for people to go out and vote.
I think so voting on average takes like under 10 minutes, like just in terms of the time commitment that it takes. And honestly, the last election, I think the federal one, I was in and out in like 3 minutes.
Me too.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was like I walked through. Yeah. So like the time commitment is minimal. Like I think the polling so when someone tells me like, oh, I can't be bothered, I'm too busy, I'm like, I think it says something else. It says like, okay, do you think it's a good use of your time? Because it's not a huge amount of time. But except, maybe like doing a little research beforehand and figuring out like which party you like or whatever. I think for a lot of people, what I hear a lot is they're like, yeah, I could go vote, but like,
will my vote count?
What will it do? Yeah. Like I live in a riding that's been the same party for 30 years. Like, okay, I could go vote for a different party. We used to have something called the per vote subsidy and we still have it in Quebec.
I have no idea what those words mean.
So when you voted, the party that you voted for, if they got there was like a threshold that they had to pass, they'd get money for your vote. So like there would be some funding of the parties. It still is the case in Quebec that's true. So when you vote for a party, you're giving them like a small amount of money.
From where? Where's the money coming from?
The government. It's part of it's a public funding of the political parties.
Like from our taxes?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So again, it just changes the dynamics a little bit about where they get their money because it's sort of in the public interest that we have parties.
I had no idea that existed.
So
wait, that's still a thing?
So in Quebec it is. Federally it's not. So but it's so funny because when I first started voting, that's what my dad said to me. He's like, you don't have to vote for the party that has literally always been the party where I grew up. She's like, if you vote, you give them like a little bit of money. And I was like, that's cool. I'll go do that. I'll give them like a little bit of money.
Interesting.
It's not the case anymore, but there's things like that where you can have little incentives. Like I said, provincially in Quebec, it's like, okay, well, if you really like a party, even if they're not going to win, you're still giving them a vote of confidence to like have them continue to exist or like whatever, that their budgets are met. But it is hard. It's hard to convince someone if they live somewhere where their maybe political views are, so say you're like a liberal supporter in Alberta or you're a conservative supporter in Montreal. You're unlikely, I mean, barring some major change, like less likely or very unlikely to like change the outcome of the election in your riding. So it's really discouraging for people. So it's like that's where the conversation comes around and like, should we change the way we count votes? Would that change the dynamics here? Like a lot of people do think that.
How would they change the vote? How would they change that?
So there are different systems. Like we use one called first past the post in Canada.
Yes, I think my husband explained this, but I already forgot what it was. What is it?
Yeah. So basically when you vote, you can have like 4 different options. Let's say you're voting and you have like party A, B, C, and D. And like 30% of the population votes for party A, 15, I'm not going to do the math, whatever, like goes down from there. Whoever has the most votes, even if you don't have a majority of the votes, you win the whole riding.
How would you not have the majority of the votes if...
Well, because if you have 4 parties, it gets split. You wouldn't have the majority. You wouldn't have over 50% of the votes.
Oh, majority means over 50.
Yeah. No.
I knew that. I knew that. Did not.
So yeah, sorry. No, I could explain better. So if you have over 50% of the vote, like 50,
you win.
No. If you have the most votes.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm
if
confusing.
you have the most votes, like
you win.
You win.
So theoretically, if you had like 10 parties and everyone got 10 and you got 11, you would win.
Okay.
Which, if you look at people saying like, okay, who's the best? If you look from a democracy lens and you're like, who's the best person to represent our riding? Only 11% of the people who even bothered to voted for. It's there are people who are like, is that the best way to represent the people of that area? And it's a good question. Like some people feel like, yes, it's fair and that's good. And some people are like, well, maybe we should have a system that tries to represent the more broadly the people, or in a different way, so proportional representation.
Has this ever changed though? Like this
in Canada? No. In other places, yes. So like a lot of countries have changed to a system that tries to make the it's a little bit different at the municipal level, but provincially and federally, like have a legislature. So like the Parliament, the House of Commons, or like the Assemblée nationale, for example, like have it look more like how people actually voted. Yeah. So say in the province, and you look at it more broadly, like 30% of people voted for party A, 25% voted for party B, whatever. Like that the legislature would look more like that. Because what happens now is if all the parties are just getting maybe 30% of the vote and winning the whole riding, is that you might end up like the last Quebec election where a party has 70% of the seats, but only got like 30% of the vote. And so that gap sometimes can be really discouraging for people because they're like, wait, what? The people who are making all the decisions were elected by 30% of the province.
Oh.
And so it's a big discussion, but it's super complicated. It's like there's something logical about first past the post where people are like, I vote, whoever got the most votes should go. But when you zoom out a bit and you look at who's then making decisions in the Assemblée nationale or in the House of Commons, it's a little less straightforward.
So also, I wanted to ask you what your thought was on this. Like in the States, they vote for, like here federally, there's municipal elections coming up that I have a lot of questions for, but federally, we just had an election. Are we going to have another election? Like, because it's a minority government. Is it a minority?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so in the States, they vote for their leader, their president. Here, we vote for our the writing, right? We have to go. So if we're voting, let's say, for someone in the Liberal Party, then that vote goes towards the Liberal Party, correct?
So in Canada, at the so when you do a federal election,
if that person wins that person wins the writing,
yes,
then that's a vote
they represent you and they are a member of that party.
Yeah. So that's where I get confused because I'm like,
fair.
if I want to vote for this person, I want this person to be the prime minister, but I don't really agree with whatever the person in my writing is doing. Like, that's where I find there's like a disconnect, right? Because I want to. So would you think that it'd be better to vote the way that the United States votes or the way that Canada votes?
They have a completely different system to ours. So like so in Canada, the prime minister is technically just another MP, right? Like, I'll keep using the Justin Trudeau example. Justin Trudeau was the MP for Papineau, and he represented the people of Papineau, and then had the role, because he was the leader of the party with the most seats, he became the prime minister and was able to appoint cabinet and set the direction of the government, whatever. But technically, when he's sitting in the House of Commons, he is an MP, right? And he votes. He has a vote like everyone else. And so our system is based on the old British system, the Westminster system. Like, so we have a similar makeup to them. So that's why our constitution is set in a way where like your prime minister is the head of the government, but our head of state, which is kind of what the president is technically the king, represented by the governor general. So that's why like so you asked when the next election, I have no idea. But I can guarantee you when there is a next election, the first thing that will happen is everyone will gather outside of like Rideau. There'll be whispers. People will be like, oh, the prime minister is going to pull down the government, or like some, and he goes to Rideau Hall and he has to ask the governor general to dissolve parliament and call an election. And technically that's still done by the representative of the now king. I keep forgetting, like, not queen anymore, but the king.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I think we have like 5 minutes left. I had 2 more questions.
Yeah.
One, how did you because you're so cool. How did you get involved in politics and become part of Apathy is Boring? And 2, to end off this episode, what message you want to give to people for the upcoming municipal elections?
Okay, so I think I've always been like an engaged person in a way. Like, I grew up in a house where we talked about politics a lot. Like, talking about that stuff at a young age is important. And like, so I think when I sort of went into university and beyond, like I cared about stuff, but I never really knew how to like actually do things. Like, it sounds weird. It's like I care a lot, but I have no idea like how you get involved or like what I should be doing. So I think actually, like, in a way, I was interested but not actually doing things until I started working at Apathy is Boring. Like, literally, I have a background in like research and like program evaluation work, and that's like how I started here. Is that I literally did the research and stuff on our actual programs and then built from there. But like, I think to your point earlier, like, I think once you're in those environments and you see that it's just people having conversations and like,
it's less intimidating because it is like I feel like an outsider in this conversation. Not that you make me feel like an outsider, but I feel like it is intimidating to start, talking about politics with people, especially if you think they know more than you do.
But I kind of think of it like when you're really like talking to people who are like really into politics, like the little machinations of like things that happen in Ottawa or Quebec City or even at City Hall in Montreal. Like, I kind of think of them like sports fans.
Yeah.
Like, I think most people know a lot about the things that they want to see, the things that they're living and experiencing, like young people and the cost of living and housing affordability crisis. They could tell you so much. Growing up, I grew up in Hudson, like outside of Montreal. And like, when you turn 16 there at the time, there was like no public transit. So everyone got a car. And like, I always talk about how my guy friends, my like 17, 18-year-old guy friends, like, were obsessed with potholes and road infrastructure. I swear,
I think we all are.
I swear, these 17-year-old guys, if you had sat them down, could give you like a 10-point plan on how to fix the 40 and like the off ramp.
It still needs fixing.
And it does. So that's how far it got.
Yeah.
But they could tell you everything about that. Everything. Like, they were like, it's this type of asphalt. It's like, whatever. I don't even know. But like, everyone cares about something and everyone knows what they experience. And the whole point of living in a democracy is that the things that matter to you and to me might matter to other people. And if we can agree on a way to address those issues, then in an ideal world, that should make its way into our legislatures. And if that's not happening, then we need to be figuring out why, because that's sort of the point. The point is that our government should be acting in the public interest. And I think for me, like, I'm obviously very passionate about democracy. I work completely nonpartisanly. Like, I'm not here to like plug for a party, and like I never have, and I probably never will, because I like working sort of in this space where I'm like, what do you want? What's really important to you, and how can I help you connect that to the systems that we have and the institutions that we have to like make a difference?
I think that's like the great like ending message to this is think about what matters to you most when it comes to the municipal elections, and like do your research to figure out which party is going to support that for you.
That's it. Like, listen to what they have to say and let them convince you.
Yeah. Or are you watching The Summer I Turned Pretty?
No.
Be a Conrad, because I feel like Conrad would vote. So just go out and be a Conrad.
Be a Conrad.
Be a Conrad.